What is it you want us to do?
Hey, that's pretty good. We've got things coordinated today. Okay. Are we all set, Steve?
Yes, you're on.
Okay, good morning, afternoon, or evening, my friends, depending where you are. I'm Emily Windsor-Craig, and this is where I'm at in California. It's 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on January the 16th, 2021. History Reset is brought to you each Saturday to bring valuable information to the public that corporate media refuse to divulge. This program is a public service, but please donate to People's Internet Radio to keep the people's truth coming at you without commercial adverts. Now, some people's energies are wound clockwise, and they speak positively in affirmations and praise. And Trump is like that. Other people, like me, exhibit energies that are wound counterclockwise. And what we notice is the hole in the donut, what is missing, what turns out badly, because our own experience has gone that way. Now, Trump is positive, and he's a leader, but I'm not a leader leading from the good. I'm following behind, and I'm picking up the pieces. Today's topic on History Reset is how educational pedagogy is so far off the beam of actually teaching competent problem-solving skills, it's really going to need a purge in its methods against the Marxist-Leninist victimization mentality being pushed nationwide in schools and universities. Educational pedagogy has taught our children to be and live as spectators for 2 generations now. So we're going to look at 4 things. 1, how Venezuela crashed with socialism. And then 2, we'll get an introduction into the NESARA-GESARA movement, which Trump's martial law will initiate. 3, I'm going to introduce you to my book that talks about how we're lied to every which way. And 4, then we'll think about how to prepare ourselves and our young people, once again, as in the past, to be self-responsible and not just gamers looking for a free ride out of mommy's and daddy's basement, okay? All right, so that's what we're going to do today. And the first thing is about Venezuela. Venezuela was an example of a country where the election was fixed at the Dominion voting machine level. When Chavez ran for the Venezuelan presidency, okay, and during Chavez's run, he downplayed his previous radical views and told people that he was neither for savage capitalism, nor socialism, nor communism. And instead, he claimed to support a third way, a balance between socialism and capitalism, which is very much like the Biden story. Chavez, quote, won the election. Maria Teresa Romero, a Venezuelan who fled to the US, says Chavez's softer rhetoric was all about seizing power. Hugo Chavez deceived people by blatantly using lies, she told Fox News. Okay, and that's exactly our experience now. News reports from when Chavez won the presidency in 1998 state that some Venezuelans sent their valuable property to Miami to protect it from potential confiscation. But in the short run, their property was safe. Chavez didn't implement many socialist policies immediately. His first priority was instead to rewrite the Constitution. He was direct about it, telling the Venezuelan Congress in 1999, the Constitution and with it the ill-fated political system to which it gave birth 40 years ago, has to die. It has to die, sirs, accept that. Okay, and that's similar to the leftist revolution we face today. Chavez succeeded in rewriting the Constitution, which came with new rights to bring like free government-provided health care, college, and social justice. The Constitution passed a popular vote easily with 72% of the vote. The basic structure of both the old and new constitutions followed the U.S. model, with presidency, a legislative branch, and a Supreme Court. However, after several Supreme Court rulings went against Chavez, in 2004, he stacked the court by passing a law to add 12 new justices to it, justices that he got to pick. A similar move was once proposed in the U.S. by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the idea has also been proposed recently by professors angry about President Trump's nomination of Justice Brett Kavanaugh to the court. Only once Chavez had control of the courts and the legislature did he begin to fully advance socialist policies. Okay. A series of changes started to show us the terrifying truth, Giannana Raffo said. Constant attacks on private property, the implementation of very harmful economic policies, criminalization of dissent, censorship, etc. In 2006, Chavez ran for election in an overtly socialist platform, and soon after he won, he began major seizures of privately owned property. Thousands of private businesses were nationalized, including media outlets, oil and power companies, mines, farms, banks, factories, and grocery stores. One video shows a shop owner in tears as his business is confiscated for charging higher prices than were allowed. Through the nationalizations, Americans from Michael Moore to Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz often applauded Chavez's regime. In the beginning, Chavez had shown some progress in reducing poverty, something experts say was possible by spending Venezuela's vast oil wealth. They were able to fund a lot with the oil money, and when the oil prices went down, the rest of the economy had been just destroyed. Tom Palmer, executive VP at the Atlas Network, told Fox News. America may be a long way from Venezuela's tragedy, experts say, and so on and so forth. Well, these are the methods of the left and the deep state that Biden hails and intends to pursue and continue, all right? And so I thought I would bring those up for you because that is what would occur if there is a Biden administration that actually takes hold, the socialist methods. And down below, of course, I have given you a graphic on the Frankfurt School and its methods and Saul Alinsky and its methods. And they are the same as the deep state methods and the Biden methods and the Democratic methods, and that is a socialist takedown. So that's one direction, one route that the United States of America would go if the Biden administration actually were to be inaugurated on the 20th or 21st of January. But that's not the only agenda on the table, because there is a covert op, a revolution by white hat generals spoken of by the Q movement and by General Flynn and by Dr. Steve Pieczenik that says the United States is not going to be left in either in the dark nor in the throes of a completely rigged election. All right. And in this second alternative, in which we will have martial law and the military will preside until certain legal and lawful matters are clarified, and a new administration begins, probably with President Trump continuing into a second administration. Okay, where that's going, where they state they're going, is into the NESARA-GESARA legislation that was supposed to have taken hold back in 1963, and the assassination of Kennedy ended that initiation. And then it was supposed to have taken effect in 2001, and the 9/11 attack ended that initiation. And so now, with the Trump team asserting that they can, in fact, reassert and maintain power over the United States and re-establish the United States Constitution as its literal, lawful, legal basis, no longer accepting the United States corporation's authority. Okay, if the military martial law goes through, the next president will be called the 19th president of the United States for America, because it will take off from the last president of the United States Republic, which occurred, and I think that was Andrew Jackson. Okay, so let's look at NESARA, and I've given you the link below. Now, NESARA is legislation of the United States government that was designed by highlight beings in conjunction with spiritual beings on the planet as the legal means to usher in the era of peace, love, and harmony on Earth. Okay. Some consider NESARA to be political and economic in nature, while others view it as spiritual because of the high-level light beings affiliated with it. NESARA is both. When people are severely oppressed by political and economic conditions that foster impoverished living circumstances, lack of health care and education, monopoly of natural resources, slave labor, unjust laws and courts, starvation, and tyrannical regimes, offering soul food is not enough. When people are preoccupied with mere survival requirements, giving them only spiritual messages is not going to bring about the global reforms they need to rise out of their misery. This is why the provisions of NESARA are monumental in scope, embodying sweeping reforms for Earth that will begin as soon as the legislation is officially announced. When people become aware of the reforms, they will be motivated to participate according to their own capabilities. As in all other aspects of polarity still existing on Earth, NESARA is at one extreme and the dark forces, the deep state, the members themselves, called the Illuminati, are at the other. NESARA is designed to erase poverty and all its attendant ills from Earth during a transitional period preceding ascension, so that the planet's sovereign citizens can force their attention on planetary transformation, as Salusa indicates. The changes will not be imposed for the sake of it, but are part of our plan to bring you the comforts and protection that will lift your experience to a new level and bring you joy and happiness. Following that, you will be in the right frame of mind to apply yourselves to the business of preparing for ascension. That is the ultimate goal. Okay, and at this point, let me let out a little giggle. Okay, a little giggle. This is very optimistic. Okay, cool. After ascension, this planet is destined to be weaned from the use of money, as Salusa points out. Ultimately, you will reach a stage where money has no place in a society that is founded upon sharing. Matthew confirms that the time.
Here's an answer from Facebook.
My phone is listening to this. Okay. Matthew confirms that the time will come after ascension, to drop the use of money. In Earth's golden age, the trend will be away from money and towards systems of sharing and bartering. The light intensity in souls will let those means of remuneration for services and conduct of commerce become as satisfying between nations as between individuals. I would call this optimism, okay? It was felt that there was no sense in implementing NESARA before the dark forces had been removed from power. Otherwise, they would use their control of government to seize people's funds. According to Matthew, the dark forces tenaciously held onto control of the top rungs of all human institutions. We know that, okay. The Illuminati's tentacles reached the highest levels of governments, banking establishments, all media outlets, churches, multinational corporations, royal families, educational, medical, and drug, law, and justice systems. Nothing of influential nature on your planet is free of Illuminati control. Well, this is what I've been trying to tell everybody. Okay. Matthew describes their stake in the matter. The powerful cabal has long recognized that to retain their control of Earth's peoples, they must keep them in ignorance and fear, and for millennia that has worked well for those currently in power and their dark predecessors. Now they are realizing that it can't work for them much longer or at all, and they are sparing no tactic to hold onto their fast webbing control. They rightly see NESARA as total uprooting, because once the program's reforms are implemented, the control of darkness will crumble totally. Many people wonder why the Galactic and Spirit Coalition do not force the cabal to accept NESARA. They may not appreciate the requirement imposed on the coalition that it respect free will. According to God's laws, the coalition is bound until the arrival of a divine deadline to allow even the Illuminati to accept their free will, including in respect to NESARA, as Matthew explains. By creation's law, souls' free will must be respected, except in the case of nuclear detonations in space. That includes the free will choices made by members of the dark forces to hold up and weaken, preferably doom, NESARA. Another source of confusion arises from our belief that the coalition's plans are predestined and therefore fixed. But Cryon informs us there are things that we call wild cards, that is to say, potentials that nobody thought about. Matthew describes the situation facing the coalition. We can tell you what is fomenting behind the scenes regarding the truth about the global economy. But because Earth's energy field of potential is in such wild commotion, we cannot discern what information will emerge first or the order in which the facts will follow. The coalition must allow for free will choices. Therefore, their plans must respond to our actions, human actions, which means that they must be changeable, as Salusa tells us. We continually adjust our plans according to the changes on Earth. In a week-to-week basis, so much could happen, and it is why we are unable to be more precise about the coming months. However, Salusa does make one prediction regarding timing. On January 1st, 2010, he said that if we were to anticipate where you might be by the end of this year, we would expect to have seen governmental changes and the first signs of the abundance program taking place. Well, that was only 10 years or 11 years behind. So, they've been waiting a long time. All right, we have seen that NESARA can be described from several different vantage points, and its exact date of implementation remains unknown. As an economic measure, it is intended to be temporary and transitional. As a spiritual measure, it is intended to inspire Earth's population with what is possible, which ascension will fully reveal. Once NESARA comes, it will relieve Earth's population of poverty and toil and allow them to devote themselves fully to the ultimate task of planetary transformation. Got that? All right. I didn't know that much about NESARA either. And so NESARA is apparently a method for transforming economics, and it utilizes hard resources as the basis for its currencies. Okay, it's no longer a fiat debt system. Okay, well, let's just get started with that. Now, in this description of NESARA, what we hear in the background is that we have been taught a whole lot of false information. We have been taught and programmed to believe a bunch of stuff that just flat isn't true, all right? And so this week, I have published the link for my book. It's only a 70-page book, but it's full of pictures and references. My take on how we have been treated like children and victimized to a story of history that never happened that way. It just never happened that way at all. And this book is intended to get you going on correcting the BS and the myths and the fables that education and academia and the media have been quaffing down our throats now for about 500 years, okay? 500 years of BS is a long, long time, all right? If you get my drift, all right? We have been fed myths and fables, all right? All right, and this, what we've been taught is how to tear everything down. If you look at the Frankfurt School, the 11-point plan of the Frankfurt School, which is what universities and colleges and the Common Core curriculum teach to our young people, all right? They create racism as offensive. They continually create change in order to cause confusion. They teach sex and homosexuality to very young children. They undermine not the schools and teachers' authority, but the authority of the content. There goes my voice. The content of the courses themselves. The teachers and the school's rule baiting becomes more important than the content that the students are learning. They promote huge immigrations to destroy cultural identities. They promote and market excessive pleasure seeking. They empty the churches. They allow and create an unreliable legal system with bias against victims of crime. And they do that by bribing judges. They promote dependency on the nanny state and state benefits, the love of ease and the love of fantasy. They control and dumb down the media, and they encourage the breakdown of the family. This is what our kids are being taught in the education system. Educational pedagogy is so far off the beam of actually teaching competent problem-solving skills. It's going to need a literal purge in pedagogy against Marxist-Leninist victimization dogma that's been pushed nationwide in schools and universities. Oh dear. I don't breathe enough. This is a nitrous oxide tab, and it helps with when I don't breathe enough. Okay, and how did the schools and colleges do that? Instead of teaching the laws of cause and effect and arithmetic according to memorization drills and vocabulary according to a broad spectrum of traditional cultures, they teach theories. Okay, evolution is a theory. A lot of physics is theories. A lot of physics is theories. All right. If you've seen my re-renderings of NASA photos, you realize what we're allowed to see of the space photos and the planets and the moons is only a tiny bit of the topic content that is actually available. They teach ontologies, definitions and definitions and definitions, which have nothing to do with problem solving. They teach taxonomies, okay, and categorizations and generalizations about whole topics. Problem solving, this is not. Self-responsibility, this is not. And this is what our kids have had their minds filled with now for the last 40 years. When I was at university from 84 to 93, I was in my 40s. And I noticed that topic after topic and subject after subject taught theories, ontologies, and taxonomies. And there was almost no practical problem solving in any topic except chemistry and biochemistry, where they couldn't avoid it. And that's what our young people have been learning, and that's why our young people are fascinated with videos and fantasies and gaming, because gaming makes sense. Gaming is causes and effects. Gaming is a sequence of actions and outcomes, whereas the theories and the ontologies and the taxonomies are dead. They have no action in them. And so our predicament now is that our children are not prepared. They're not even prepared to see themselves as serving their communities, serving their families, serving their regions in service to the larger society. They hear all kinds of ideals about how it's good to be in service to society, but they haven't been told or taught or shown how that works. And so what we, the older generation, are going to have to do is get in and revise and restore problem solving into education and academia. We have an education technology for solving large social problems of large groups of people. One is called future search, another is called interactive management, where large groups of people are enabled to be debriefed on their part in a complex problem, and the computer functions to organize the debriefing and prioritize it and bring about a realization of the one place in the whole problem, the critical path, where everybody's concerted action will actually serve to resolve the problem at the macro level. We already have this. We've had this for 40 years. But the mainstream media, being devoted to the agenda of Marxist-Leninist dogma, has ignored the fact that this technology exists. And education has been written, and it was funded by the Bill Gates Foundation. The Common Core curricula is written to sell the children in the ideals that have no methods to reach them. That's what Common Core does. All right. So our job is to reintroduce civil methods of problem solving into education and government that have been shuffled off and discarded. Of course, whatever isn't easy gets discarded. You know, if it doesn't work right, just discard it. Maybe we'll come up with something better. You know, that's the leftist point of view, that whatever you don't like, you just discard that. Just discard people. And maybe somebody else will show up you like better, and maybe some idea will show up you like better. The eternal optimism, as if the youth of the generation are somehow supposed to generate and show up with the wisdom that ran the past pretty responsibly. All right. So this is the challenge that has to be met. Now, it cannot be met under a Biden administration, no way. Under a Biden administration, the United States is doomed to an outcome very much like Venezuela. I mean, that's inevitable, because that's what their methods are, is trashing the people who know anything and know how to do things, trashing the middle class and its businesses, trashing the people who really know anything, and handing everything out to the people who are not skilled, who are not articulate, because they're in need. I think the saying is, from each according to their ability and to each according to their need. Well, in the socialist system, need becomes primary, where all the resources go, and the people with the ability are just literally worked to death. I mean, that's the history of socialism over and over and over and over again. That's how it works. All right, we know this. But the methods to solve problems that were generated a generation ago have been discarded. So now we need to retrieve those good and positive methods and teach them to our children. Now, how are we going to do that, given the fact that schools, colleges, and universities and corporations are being bribed with Chinese money to follow the Communist Party political line, and stay with the Frankfurt School and Saul Alinsky and the destructo techniques of the Bolshevik Marxist-Leninist line. We're going to have to grab these educational institutes by the lapels, and I guess we could just simply boycott educational institutes that persist in teaching the Marxist-Leninist line to our children. That's the simplest thing. You just simply don't send your children or your grandchildren where they're going to be taught to be helpless and look at society as nothing but an arena for victimization. That's just not a positive, helpful point of view. That's not going to fix anything. To believe and bemoan and bewail victimization as if that's the only thing we have to deal with. The way you deal with victimization is you fix problems and get people going. You get people going. You get relationships going, okay? We have pawn shops and we have thrift stores, and there used to be cooperatives, cooperative grocery stores, cooperative nursery schools. What's going on here? Okay, all right. There were even cooperative hospices. All right, there are credit unions instead of banks. There used to be a barter system in the 80s that was quite extensive across the United States. There's trading. There's utilizing the internet for trading and selling stuff instead of going to the store and buying new and buying new and buying new, okay? And some of the stuff that's at the store is I tell you, just really awful. I just bought another blender. My old blender that I paid $20 for at, I think it was a Walmart blender, $20. It worked just fine, but it acquired, the thing broke on it. Okay, so I had to buy a new blender. So I paid $50 for a quote Black & Decker that was made in China. Oh my God. And it has a motor in it that would do justice to a pencil sharpener. Okay, it can't whiz up anything. All right, and it weighs the thing to hold your liquid in already weighs 5 pounds. It's a massive heavy thing that with a little teeny tiny engine. A lot of what is being made as consumer products is not worth what you paid for it. And that's one of the problems that we need to grapple with, is that the GMO foods and the glyphosate tainted groceries and the fluoride tainted water and the DNA changing tainted medical amendments, let me use that word. Okay, so much of what we have available to us as products is less than quality made. So we need to think about, all right, let's go for quality, not quantity. Let's teach our children a vocabulary that's rich with descriptive words out of Shakespeare, the McGuffey's readers for one. Let's utilize the skills of processing numbers in our brain and not needing a calculator. Let's use our heads more, and toys and little gizmos and gadgets less. Okay, that's my idea for getting back on the trail and on the train of making life simple and rich at the same time. What makes life rich is relationships, experience, and memories. What impoverishes culture and our families are toys and gizmos and the desire for ease. The desire for ease is a destructive default from a desire for self-respect and self-responsibility and self-regard. Here, these are the opportunities we have now if we are given the chance to be part of the NESARA-GESARA change program, which is a whole new different set of methods. It's not going to be easy because we have to retrain ourselves to be self-responsible again, as we were self-responsible 2 generations ago. We're going to have to step back a half a century or a full century and accept the responsibility to be able to write legibly, to be able to calculate in our heads, to be able to speak with a rich vocabulary and know the skills for solving and resolving problems and conflicts and disputes. We can't just leave all of this to a nanny state. And so, well, Steve, I did it fast. I did it quick. I have covered this topic today already. Are you there?
I'm here.
All right. I have covered what I came to say, and I don't mean to talk for any longer than I absolutely have to, because people get bored. People get bored. So I'm done, hon.
Oh, that was that was some questions that I put in chat earlier.
Okay, well, what are the questions?
I'll go back up and reread them. You mentioned that they're...
Here. I'll get on the chat room.
Okay. You'll have to scroll up a little bit.
All right. I don't see chat box. What's this? Hello.
You mentioned that there wouldn't be any need for money anymore.
What was this about money?
You mentioned there wouldn't be a need for money.
That's under the NESARA. That's under the NESARA-GESARA program. I was reading off their document, and that's a mystery to me too. I have no idea how the NESARA method of reorganizing our economic system is going to create transactions, okay, and trades and transactions and barters and stuff, so that I think we're always going to need some form of script, some form of coins, some form of tokens.
Did you get to the questions?
Pardon?
Did you scroll up to the questions?
I didn't see where there were questions. Oh, no need for greed, no need for ego, no need for government. All of that is the NESARA doctrine. All right. And so I have no idea at this point, because I'm not familiar with the NESARA method. I have never seen the NESARA method for reorganizing our economic system. I've never seen it published.
Lori said you're not boring.
I haven't the first idea what they intend to do.
Lori said you're not boring.
I'm not boring?
No. Scroll down and read what she said.
I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you. That's very nice.
She said you're not boring.
Now, no need for war. This is a big issue and a big problem. You know, in the 1960s, there was a series of Iron Mountain conferences on national and international defense. And in those conferences, and you can find it, just look for Iron Mountain Conference on YouTube. It's a 2-hour video. The Joint Chiefs and the military men of the world decided that war is an absolute necessity, and that wars need to be staged into the indefinite future, and that's why we have the serial wars since then. There are some people in the subjective dimension who believe and think that war is a necessity. It's not just unnecessary. Now we have to deal with that point of view, that perspective.
Did I ever tell you what my 80-year-old stepfather has said before?
What did he say?
He said in his his 11th grade economics class, 1958 or 1959, one or the other, that his economics teacher told him that the U.S. needed a war every 10 years to be able to sustain itself.
Yes, that's the neocon position. That's PNAC, and I keep showing you the roster of the people at PNAC in the year 2000, just before the 9/11 attack. Okay, and PNAC contains the people of the deep state who are still and now in power. Mueller and Obama and Clinton and
Bush Jr.
Yeah, Bush
Cheney.
Jr. Okay, those PNAC consists of the people who are still in power in the deep state. So the question becomes, is the deep state going to be able to hang on to power, or is the NESARA-GESARA faction actually going to be able to topple them? And at this point, because I haven't seen any phenomena one way or the other, I can't stand here and say what's going to be this way or that way. Of course, I want to see the deep state toppled because it's the basis, it's the core, it's the place where child sex trafficking and gun running and drug running and influence peddling and pay to play and protection racketeering and divide and conquer, that's where all of these mafia quasi-criminal practices occur and exist, is in the deep state. So of course I want this deep state to go down. But to me, NESARA-GESARA is an absolute unknown. I've never seen its methods published. I have no idea how it intends to get from point A to point B. Reading that NESARA document today doesn't give us any indication how they intend to do any of it. So my questions are like yours. How are they going to do it? I haven't got a clue. Do you know more than I do? No. About this topic. I'm just as in the dark as the rest of us.
How the deep state's going to go down?
Pardon me? How the deep state what?
The deep state will go down?
Now, the deep state will go down if the military martial law is able to take over and prosecute the state principles down at Gitmo. That's how the deep state will go down.
You see, Albert Pike in the middle of the 19th century in his writing said that there was going to be 3 world wars. Well, we had the first and the second already, and the third was supposed to be between communism and capitalism.
And I think we're going to still have the third, regardless of whether it goes one way or the other. We're going to have the third war.
Sure. Look at the mantra that's been here in the last few months. Everything is, or actually probably the last couple of years, everything is the Democratic Party's fault and China's fault. This and that. And the way I see it, they are going to reveal that China and the Democratic Party is the culprits. Nothing about, the military-industrial complex, nothing about the Republican Party. It's all going to be...
Exactly. All right. I agree completely. that China and the Democratic Party are the scapegoats and the fall guys, and it doesn't matter that vulture capitalists in the Republican Party
Right.
are the ones who have been demolishing and disassembling whole industries in the United States and sending them off to China.
Yep.
It's the vulture capitalists who sent everything over to China, so that now when we take it all back, China freaks out and they want a war. Of course.
Yes. Yes.
2 and 2 is 4, not 5. So yes, we're going to have a war, no doubt. But I hope that the deep state principles, the deep state mafia, the Bolshevik Marxist-Leninists, who are also trafficking in children, drugs, and guns, get put away before the war happens. But the war is going to happen because of what the Republican neocons and rhinos did to China.
Yes.
Yes, I got that.
That all started in 1948, though. That didn't start here in the last few years.
Right.
That was all set up in 1948.
Yes. Well, it was actually set up with the East India Company when the British got the Chinese hooked on opium.
Yeah, well.
That was a century ago.
200 years ago.
Yeah, okay. And King George V was an opium addict who used to beat his kids, and that's why Edward, the eldest, when he went into the army at age 20, was only 5'1" and weighed barely 100 pounds. He failed to thrive. And why his younger brother, Albert, who became George VI, had a terrible stutter, because George V was a brute. He was a brute.
Uh-huh.
And he undid the entire monarchy of the kingdom. He undid it himself. He established Tavistock. He sent the Zionists into the Mideast in Israel, although he held the kingdom of the Hebrew kingdom in trust in his own monarchy. He set up the Kalergi plan. I mean, George V is the New World Order guy from a century ago that has never been spoken about. That's what I found out. So our history is totally, totally backwards and wrong. And that's what you're welcome to see in my little book, Path Orion 2 PDF. The link is below. It's just a 70-page book. I hope you enjoy it. It's full of pictures, and I'm looking for feedback. If you find any errors in the book, please let me know. I'd like to correct them.
Are you ready to end?
Yeah. So, and in the book, there are links to other free books. And, I'm really interested in space and planets and moons and stuff. So I put a bunch of those pictures in there. And I really had fun putting that together to explain to people why I don't believe anything that the mainstream media or education or academia have to teach us, because it's all bullshit. I'm sorry.
I don't either.
Sorry. It's all bullshit.
I don't either.
Yeah. Well, we've got to hold the fort. So I guess that's it for today, Steve.
Okay.
And I've had a good time. I don't know about anybody else.
Yes, we all have. We all do.
Okay, sweetie. Good to meet up with you again. We'll see you next week.